They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no gang. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. Isn't our genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.
Welcome back to another edition of New Freedom Exchange, your cultural expression for social. Y'all can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Check mic. Welcome back to another edition of New Freedom Exchange, your cultural expression for social dignity and community empowerment. I'm your co-host, Brother Dean, here with.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. My allergies are killing me.
sister allergies. That's what we're going by tonight.
Sister allergies. Assalamu alaikum, it's Sister Marsha.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's Imam Bilal, Hassan. We're here live and direct. New Freedom Exchange. Hope everyone's doing well. Saturday night. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, a great Saturday. If, like always, if you are tuning in, please let us know where you're tuning in from. Give salam, give peace to the space. Let us know so we can shout you out. Alhamdulillah, tonight we just had a nice screening of the documentary Blood Brothers. And before we get into that, how's everyone doing?
It's Saturday night and I just got paid. No.
Okay, that's the groovy.
I'm bugging out today. No, I'm doing well. You know, I was in the house most of the day, but I actually, even when we were watching the documentary, I was out and about in the laundromat watching. I know the people were like, if she don't turn that down on my phone, but I got stuff to do. But no, I'm doing well. My children are doing well. My allergies are doing something different today. And I have seasonal allergies, so sometimes it's me, sometimes not. But alhamdulillah, doing well. How about y'all?
Well, I guess I'll go. Dean, you want to go?
No, I'm doing good.
Go ahead, man.
Hanging in there. Just you hear me? It's still slow. It's still a lag.
Yeah.
I'm outside, so that's why there's a little delay on my side. So don't mind me. Only thing I just want to show is the shirt. But can you see the shirt? Can you see the shirt?
Yes. This Imam Muhammad lift up. Can you lift it up a little more? There we go. There it is. That's like.
It just says lift your mind.
Lift your mind. Lift up your mind. We like that.
But we'll get into the discussion. Go ahead, Bilal. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Everything's going good so far. Today, well, let's go back to Friday. I know myself and Brother Deen, along with my family, my mom and my sister, we went out to New Jersey, to North Hudson Islamic Education Center out there in Hudson County, right outside the Lincoln Tunnel, not too far away from the city. And we did Jummah there with our beloved brothers from the three Puerto Rican imams, Imam Wesley, and we met up with Imam Wesley and Imam Yusuf Rios, who's one of the imams or educators there now, North Hudson Islamic Center, by way of Chicago. He left Chicago, now he's back here on the East Coast. He made the call out for us to come by, stop by the education, by the mosque school there. They have a nice school building actually inside the mosque. Actually, the students were in attendance of Jummah. It kind of reminded me of that Claire Muhammad School feeling, when we used to stop, for prayer, like that was a thing. Like you stop, you make Jummah, people come from the community, attend the khutbah and stuff like that. So it was really nice to see the students and see the congregation engaged. After that, we went out to have a bite to eat, and we had a nice discussion at a nice Peruvian halal restaurant not too far away from the masjid, which was really good food, really good company, really good conversation. So shout out to Imam Wesley, Imam Yusuf Rios out there in New Jersey for their hospitality. We really appreciate the brothers to give salams to everyone.
Don't forget Umar, the Sheikh Umar.
We got to be Sheikh Umar
Cubana,
from
man. Don't forget the
Cuba. Yeah, Sheikh Umar was boasting about Cuba. He's a Cuban Muslim representing Cuba, who studied actually in Turkey and in Saudi, some saying Islam, and it was just talking to us about Cuba, the history of Cuba as it relates to the Muslims there. They have two masajids in Cuba. There's a Cuban Muslim organization that there will be some efforts there to bring in some, hoping to get some volunteers to come bring down some medical supplies and food to Cuba by way of getting on a plane and saying that you're going to do dawah. That's the only way you can. That's the only out of 12 ways. One of the 12 ways to get to Cuba is that if you say that you're going down there for religious reasons, they'll allow you in from the States to go to Cuba. They will not allow you in if you're going there just to party and smoke Cuban cigars and drink astaghfirullah, any of those type of things in Havana. But if you're going down there for like missionary work, religious work, you'll be allowed to come into the States. So there will be opportunities for that in October, inshallah, to go to Cuba from the States to do work. He told us that there are about 4 vaccines that the Cubans have made for COVID, actually. 4 vaccines that the Cuban people have made for COVID. And they've been using that vaccine on their people, not Pfizer or Moderna. They've been using the ones that they have made, their doctors have made in Cuba, which was interesting because we know the embargo that's been placed on Cuba. I know the borders between U.S. and Cuba has been closed for political reasons, and they're trying to stifle the Cuban economy, because if they were allowed to patent their vaccine, a lot of other people would get it from Cuba, not probably from these other companies. But anyway, neither here nor there. Nice conversation, nice brother, nice fellowship, alhamdulillah. And then today I supported the Lowellton Farmers Market at the Vegan Fest. Shout out to Diana Rose, Lowellton Farmers Market, the whole crew, Black Queens Resource Network. Again, another successful turnout, beautiful turnout, beautiful people, and nice to see the vendors and people supporting Black-owned businesses.
And I'm gonna give y'all a pass for not
for the Hudson County butt.
Yes, because guess what? I work on 31st Street.
I passed 31st Street going up to 47th.
I work right outside the Lincoln Tunnel, and ain't nobody come through and holler at me. But I'm gonna give y'all a pass. Let's get on to our post documentary discussion.
Bring on our beloved sister Jada. I don't know why you beloved to bring her on in the first place. She's been on this spot before. Let's bring on sister Jada, our beloved. Bring her on here. Put her on the stage. Okay, so tonight we had a screening of Blood Brothers, the documentary about our beloved brothers Muhammad Ali and El Hajj Malik Al Shabazz, aka Malcolm X. We ask Allah to forgive them their sins, and grant them Jannatul Firdaus, a station in paradise for their efforts, for the work that they have put in, what they meant for the Ummah and what they meant for the world. So tonight we witnessed the documentary. So spoilers alert: if you have not seen the documentary, then I guess you should exit this conversation. But if you have seen the documentary, I posted the link so you guys can get on the screen and share out your thoughts. Come on screen and share with us as well, if you more likely would like to do. So yeah, so what did everyone think about the doc?
I enjoyed it, and I'm gonna tell you what I enjoyed about it. We're watching the bits and pieces of their story, right? Because you don't get the whole thing. None of us were there, but you're watching the bits and pieces of their story, and you're watching it in this hindsight, right? So, I imagine that in the moment that they were experiencing all that they were experiencing with each other, with the nation, all of that, you don't necessarily see how the whole machine is working when you're in it. But when you step back and you're able to have that bird's eye view, you get to see things that you probably wouldn't have noticed or saw before. And so for me, it was interesting to see the story of their brotherhood, their experience in the nation, coming to the nation, being together as brothers, blood brothers, as the title goes, and how their lives were moving forward separately, but how that intertwined at moments. And I don't have a critique. Sometimes I think it depends too on who's watching it. So for me, it wasn't a part of my experience. I imagine that those who were there at that time and were around it and were in the midst of it, they're looking at it with a different lens. But for me, it was interesting just to step back and look at a story of two Muslim brothers and how they came to connect to each other, how their individual journeys were moving forward, how there was then the separation. And then although there was not this coming back together, there was this resolve in the midst of their children, or after, Malcolm X's daughter and Muhammad Ali, there was this sort of peace made at some point after his passing. So it was just interesting to watch it from that perspective. But again, like I said, I'm sure that others who experienced it from a different point of view saw it from that lens.
Jada? Dean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Sister Marsha. Like, it was a really good, for me, it was a good documentary as far as like, seeing the history between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and just seeing their brotherhood. It was some things in the documentary that I just found out and I was like, okay, I am doing so it was really interesting to just see how that panned out, and as far as like the relationship, something that I was like looking at was like their brotherhood, but then like how the daughter mentioned like the outside forces kind of like, breaking their brotherhood apart, and how at the end, they mentioned that Muhammad Ali had regretted that, like their relationship falling apart, so it was just interesting to just see all that pan out. Other than that, it was a really good documentary. I know sometimes some of the stuff that's put out, in the media, things, tend to be forgotten. But I think that for people that didn't know the relationship of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and just like that history, it was pretty good in my opinion.
And it's easier for us, like I said, it's easier for us to see it that way because we're outside of the situation looking at it. The other thing, so I have to be honest, that first thought for me is just like, you know, we just had I forgot what the other show was called, One Night in Miami. And
right.
You know,
I felt
in
the
my mind, I'm just
correlation.
like, what? Why? You know, why?
Right.
You know, so and that's just a natural thought that comes to your mind. Like, okay, this just came out not too long ago. Now this documentary, like, what? Why are they so interested in the story? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's that natural first thought I think that comes across many people's minds from our experience. But I mean, I feel like people have stories, right? They have experiences that like going through life just in general, right? And so when you think about this Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali story, you know, people have their opinions about, you know, especially when it was the piece about Muhammad Ali breaking ties with Malcolm X because of his allegiance to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then obviously, you know, that makes you a little bit uncomfortable to, you know, start to have that conversation, because now it feels like, oh, I got to pick a side, that type of thing. But to sit back and just watch it all play out without taking sides and having that objective view, it's just like, you know, we make decisions and we do things based off of the information that we have at the time. It was also interesting to see the evolution of people, right? Because when we get to the end, we hear the piece about Muhammad Ali having this regret about severing his ties with Malcolm X. But at the time when he severed his ties, you know, he was dealing with the information that was available to him at the time, with the emotions that he was feeling, and with the thought processes that he had at that moment. And I think as people, as a community, when I say people, like us individual people, as people, as a community, we evolve and we have evolved. And so, you know, you see that, or at least you hear that evolution in this documentary.
Right.
Dean?
Yeah, I still got sounds around me. I don't know how you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We hear you pretty well.
I can hear you.
Okay. That was so nice. You sisters were so nice. How you guys, you know, very
diplomatic. So sweet, right?
Well, listen, I was looking through my own lens, but I'm open to hear what you have to say.
No problem. I'm not going to put no hate. You know, my eyes are getting watery. But so like as if I was being critical just from what they presented, as you all stated, like, you know, looking at it from an outsider, you know, because we haven't experienced that. Of course, we could, as Sister Marsha said, and you also said, Jade, about, you know, seeing the evolution of people and making your decisions based off the information you had, right? But then there was a lot of clues inside the. I wasn't able to take the notes because I was in motion, but there was a lot of clues inside as they were presenting or representing, you know, the significance of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. And I like how I think a few of the people that were being interviewed, you know, they made it a point about, you know, what they represented for Black men in America, right? And so, as you stated, Sister Marsha, like, you know, what's the interest, right? I think one of the interests that comes across these different films is like, you know, they're presenting, they're giving us our credit, they're giving us our, you know, our due in some respect, but it's also like, you know, we gotta be mindful of our responsibility too as men, right? And so it's like my mind was going all different places, and so I tried to slow down and just think about, you know, what was the purpose of their relationship, and look at it from that perspective. And then I also have a lens from our community, like what Muhammad shared, and I would advise people also, especially people who are historians, and it's not by accident that they don't present what Imam Muhammad presented about the relationship as well, because he was in the midst of all of that, right?
Right.
But you never hear they did
Uh-oh.
I think we lost him.
He was about to say something real juicy.
I
Juicy,
know.
juicy.
I think they showed one little shot. He was in the bag. But that's very important because while everybody's
Dean?
giving their commentary about it from the outside, there were other people that were inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Uh-oh.
We lost Dean.
We lost him.
All right.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we lost.
To some of the points that he was making, I get that too. Like, and I said that the whole what's the interest, right? Because we've got two films back to back.
Now three, because Ali's getting his own standalone documentary on PBS.
Oh, yeah.
That's coming out. That's actually coming out, I think, this week, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
interesting. Right after the okay.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Okay. So yeah, that definitely was like my first natural thought. Was just like,
what is their motive? What is the motive behind these?
Yeah, but like I said before, the history of it all, some of it I'm removed from. So, as I'm watching, I'm learning, and at the same time, there were certain moments in the documentary where I don't remember some of the people's names who were interviewed, and I don't know if the guy was a Caucasian guy or Hispanic guy. I really couldn't tell, but he had said something to the effect like of how people in the nation that the nation was attractive. And I get that this was about the brotherhood, but this piece did stand out to me, that the nation was attractive to people whom had dealt with white supremacy and having dogs sicked on them and, all of that kind of stuff. And it was just, in that moment, it was just like, how can you be conscious of that and not be critical of the system that was putting that out there? And I know it was a documentary, so maybe that wasn't his role in that moment, but that always interests me, is like, how could you present the history, give it so matter-of-factly, but not say, well, that was really messed up. That society was really messed up. Those governmental ploys were really messed up, and that shouldn't have happened. That kind of thing. And maybe that wasn't his role to do to have in the documentary, but that stood out to me. We have a comment, Sister Asia.
She said it was taking advantage of trauma though.
Okay. That's a perspective. That's definitely a perspective, for sure. It's those experiences were real emotional filled experiences, people's lives, and for us, our elders, our pioneers, people connected to our community family wise, Bilal, you're in New York, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it does hit a lot closer for home for a lot of people. And so the other piece for me too is just like when the story gets told by people outside of your community.
That was gonna be my point. That was gonna be my point, Marsha.
Yeah.
Marsha, that was gonna be my point.
I was in the car at one point. While I was watching, I was in the car. I was in the laundromat. I was a bunch of places. I was in the car with my daughter, and I said to her, to Amina, she's 15, and I said, the one thing that always trips me out about this is that when they have certain people be interviewed that don't look like us, I get it when we're talking about, okay, he's a historian, I get that part of it, but it's always a little unnerving to have or to sit as someone else is telling the story of something that they are so far removed from.
Right. It's all about the representation of Islam. And that was something that when I was looking at the documentary, it's something that that they miss, in my opinion, is that, and also just the whole thing with the FBI and them, like, just looking at the relationship with Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. It just shows how big, the government, FBI just have this big role, play this big role in, society, and how they control the masses, like with the media and everything. So it just was interesting to see that play out. And like you were just saying, as far as like individuals from, our community telling, their point of view of the story and stuff like that. um yeah.
And I guess go ahead, Bilal.
Just another comment came in from brother Hakeem Sabri. He says, I agree with brother Mujahideen. We heard what they said, but we also heard what they didn't say.
Right.
In these documentaries, we have to, like Marsha said, look from an objective standpoint, and also from a critical lens for those who've been through it, who witnessed it. They're gonna look at it, like you said, from a different perspective because they lived it. They were there, they were present, in those moments, in those situations. So it's like, where facts are presented, is these are the facts, or these are facts that are skewered. So I'm saying, because people can present facts but leave out what they don't feel like they want to present, because that's not what the agenda is.
Right.
So I'm saying what the agenda is to show, in this documentary, I thought, to show the relationship between Muhammad Ali and Malcolm, and then how that deteriorated towards the end because of the personal things that happened to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then Malcolm getting kicked out for saying what he said. So it's like, there was betrayal, the story of betrayal, the story of like, what side should I be on? Should I be on this side? But a lot of that was also interrogation and instigated from the inside. So you have facts that were being skewered. So it's like you're hearing skewered facts. So it's like, you got to be careful, the company you keep. You know what I'm saying? Because you may hear for somebody else, it was whispered to you, be like, oh, such and such is doing this, or such and such is doing that. But like, if you don't get it from trustworthy, reliable sources, then you're gonna go with whatever someone else is telling you. So it's like, I think it presented a very it could have definitely been done better in terms of representation, in terms of who was there, who was involved. And yes, Sister Haja, this is my point. I think this is another point. Imperative we tell our stories, and we hurry to do them, and move with such more quickness than we are, because obviously there's a pattern here, like Sister Marsha picked up on. One night in Miami, which is a fictional story based upon, they hinted upon that in this documentary about that 64 Miami, them being in Miami, and them being in the room. They hinted towards that conversation in that room, etc. And so you had that movie, you had this doc, and then you have the doc coming out on PBS, which is solely about Muhammad Ali. But it's like there is an infatuation about these men and about this movement. But the question is, why the infatuation now after all these years since then? And what's the motive? And
I was about to say, in my opinion, I think it's important, like Sister Haja said, to tell our story, because you have generation after generation coming up behind us, looking at these type of, documentaries and stuff like that. So, it's very important that we, take hold of that now, so that when the next generation comes, they have a true understanding of our history. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. No, that's a real thing too. And I was listening when I was listening to Bilal talk. A few things started to go through my head about this. Initially when I hear Blood Brothers, I'm like, okay, what's that about? Why the Blood Brothers? What's the connection with that? And I'm always looking for that. And when I was first watching it, they were telling the story sort of like their lives parallel, right? So here's Malcolm and his stuff. here's Muhammad Ali and his stuff. And at first it wasn't merging together. So I was like, wait, give me the story. So eventually they came to, how they came to have this relationship together. But I don't really feel like I don't know, that it may just be me, but it wasn't they didn't go up. It felt like they intentionally like didn't touch on certain or didn't go too far into it, right? Because at first I felt like, well, tell me about the relationship from whatever information they had, tell me about what that relationship was and more about how it got severed. Like, because at the one point where they said Malcolm, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said not to make a statement because he was going to make the statement about Kennedy, and Malcolm made his own other statement about Kennedy, and then that just we just zoomed past that, and it was just like, well, from there, Muhammad Ali says he's not with it. He's against whatever the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, so I'm just cutting off with him. And I don't know, in my mind, I'm thinking it probably wasn't that simple, but I don't know how much information they had to go off of, which may be why it panned out that way, or they just didn't want to touch it.
As Ali said, they like to tell the stories of dead legends. So when they're alive, no one pays them no mind. But when they pass, you can change the narrative.
That stood out to me too when he was interviewing with the gentleman. And he said that, like, when he was alive, y'all wasn't even checking for him, and now you love him.
Right. Yeah. And then our brother Lyndon Bilal from Malva says this one gave more insight and credit than previous documentaries of the brother Abdul Rahman, the first mentor of Muhammad Ali, than other documentaries I've seen about Muhammad Ali. This is true.
Okay.
This is true. Let's see. We got more comments. It's the Hajjah. The history of American media is rich, but has need for upgrade and enter Muslim thinking via thinking Muslims. This is correct, and this is the platform. This is the reason why we have this platform here. To start that. So kickstart that into gear. As has been put already, we have a lot of filmmakers in our community, and there's no reason why we can't patch together something of substance, something of built from our history that's substantial, and put it out. You see, it don't have to be on Netflix. You can put it out on Vimeo or whatever, some of these other independent platforms, and maybe it get picked up by Netflix. But who cares? So if it does or it doesn't, I think that's another thing too. I just want to say that too, is like when you get picked up for these major deals, you got to ask yourself, all right, so what's in it? Is a payout involved? Like, you just scored a big, platform. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that kind of dilute the substance when you score those platforms? I think so, because certain things, they may not say, oh, take a documentary somewhere else. If you're going to talk about that, we don't want to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? We want you guys to approach it from this angle. We don't know what's happening in those boardrooms. You know what I'm saying? With those discussions that happen, behind the scenes, the BTS footage that we'll never see. So it's like, I just saw a post earlier that Dame Dash had partnered with Homestead Studios, which is a Black-owned independent filmmaker distribution company, to help distribute people's films, and that's a way. You know what I'm saying? That's a way. That's a option. So I'm saying, to go with people who can help distribute. So you don't be tied to some of these other bigger platforms that sometimes they'll skewer your content because they don't want that kind of content on their platform because they own it.
Right.
Hakeem says they usually frame it as one-sided, and is usually on the side of Brother Malcolm because he was the one that was killed. Most of the public won't like when we do that, when we do the real story. Okay now. Okay now.
Mm.
Okay. We got something we need to wait for.
I said it sounds like a call out, what you all were saying. I caught some of it in regards of making our own films for our own stories.
Yeah, remake the
Right.
world. Remake the world,
Look,
Aki.
you know your history, you know your future. So
So also,
Yep.
one of the things that I like to
Mhm.
do when I watch stuff like this is just like, okay, well, what's the lesson, right?
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
we're
Mhm.
when we study, even when we study Quran, right? It's like we're reading these stories, we're reading these, you know, moments in time, and but we're always looking to apply that to where we are, who we are, our experiences in this moment. And so you know, I'm always looking for well, how does that apply? What implications does their story have for us, and how
Mhm.
does that apply to me and to the community and to how we function today? You know, are there implications?
I think
And what do
one of
we
the
take from it?
implications is like the consistency of like what is our mission, right? Because it's like it seemed like we're all in the community. We all say we're Muslims. We all say we're African Americans, and we're living in America or wherever we're living at. And it's like, okay, what is our purpose? Are you going to allow things to come in your individual life that's going to take you off of the purpose of the collective, or are you going to be more intentional and keep the ranks tight? Because though they mentioned that one of the things I don't like what sometimes when they be talking about the FBI, like the FBI was here before Elijah became the leader. Like they found the FBI getting our stuff information back in the 30s, right? And so when they make it seem like it
Mhm.
was when Malcolm was here or it was this when the FBI came, that's again another narrative
Right.
that we can dispel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. I mean, the actually was here when Garvey was pumping, man. You know what I'm saying? And then it followed to the for Farad Muhammad. You know what I'm saying? Being chased around the country, and that's why he kind of disappeared. You know what I'm saying? Out of the limelight. You know what I'm saying? So out of that focus. You know what I'm saying? Because of the feds was chasing him, even then in the 30s, as you said. Because Sister Asia has another statement here, which I think we need to read here. She said, "What's the other story? Elijah literally said he deviated and he died. That's crazy to me." She's talking about that clip towards of that speech towards the end of the film, almost towards the end, or when Malcolm got shot. That clip that he showed of Elijah speaking on that matter. But it was a snippet of that speech. So, Dean, you want to tackle that?
What was it? Bring it back to me.
The
Because some joints
snippet.
just put me to sleep, man. I mean, the way they was. I mean, just be honest. I mean, the way they was putting it was like, this was so deep. It was dense, man. But what was the part?
See, he's talking about when Elijah had said in that clip, they gave you a soundbite. That's what they do. They give us sound bites of the each person. They never give the full lecture, the full clip. They give you little sound bites. She says, "What's the other story?" When Elijah literally said he deviated, talking about Malcolm X, he deviated and then he died. She said, "That's crazy to me."
Right. Yeah. It could definitely as stark as that is. I mean, the impact that you feel is real, right? But again, like we, as being students of Muhammad, like you know, listen to how he shared that. Most people don't know that when Malcolm X, when the news got back to Elijah Muhammad, it was said that he dropped his head and tears came before his eyes, and he was like, why he didn't just listen, like it was like, why did he have to do that? So there was some remorse there. There was some compassion that couldn't be presented to the public or to even the ministers or to the community because of, as we saw, like the tension and the influence that was in the community that was above our knowledge, right?
right.
That doesn't take away from what he said, of course, but again, when you get a perspective from someone who was closer or those who survived those times, that's another thing we got to think about. Like as we're talking about the FBI and the CIA and all these other elements that was in our community, we have to know the time period that was, right. That was a real thing where our government, right before even Martin Luther King got assassinated, right. So there was two Americas. There was rogue law officers. There were influences in the government that was anti-American, African American Muslims, on their own soil. So we have to put all things in context too, not just that's the thing I think we should extract when we look at these stories. Like, let's also do some other history around what else was going on. Medgar Evers got killed, right? Not to actually before Malcolm X got killed, right? And so it's like we have to look at the timeline and the circumspectual perception of other groups that was also because that was my thing about the movie. Like, Blood Brothers was also was considered like a road group, like a gang too.
It was a gang.
Yeah, so it was like, putting that on them, that's not justice either. But that was my perception of it.
Right, because it implies something else. It can imply something else. You know what I'm saying? And again, our wording, we have to be careful with our wording. You know what I'm saying? Like Dean is pointing out, Blood Brothers, the wording. You know what I'm saying? It could be called anything else.
We got Sister Zakia in the queue, man. She wants to come on.
Oh,
snap.
Okay.
Zakia up in here. Come on in here, Sister.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
loud and clear.
Loud and clear, sister.
Well, this new technology, I'm trying to figure out, okay, can I be seen? Can I be heard? Okay. But alhamdulillah, assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I just want to continue to applaud your efforts. And also, as we're thinking about, I didn't see the documentary yet, so I don't really want to speak about that. But as we're talking about, who telling our story, that, we also just keep in mind constantly that remake the world time is now. I became a Muslim in the 70s when the Imam was really pushing that, when he used that concept. So I grew up like I was you guys' age. I grew up under that auspices, and it shaped and molded me in everything that, I've done or did or whatever. But, with that thought about media and, what they say and how they say it, look, it's like your cousin that isn't a Muslim, when he tells somebody about you, you don't really have the narrative on how he's going to say it. You know what I'm saying? So, because he's telling the story, you have to tell your own story. That's my point, number one. And it's not a light thing. It's a very heavy thing that we have responsibility to do right now. And then to Mujahid's point, when he was when you're speaking about rogue people and FBI, be cognizant that these times are now as well. For the major influences of Shaitan, definitely government, media, education, and industry. So, it's real. We live in that real time. That's real time. That's all I got to say.
Excellent, sister. We appreciate Sister Haja for coming on and sharing that. It's a very important reminder. And
hold on. We got Sister Haja, Zakia, and Sister Jayla. Don't we got something to work, sister? We're about to put some.
Oh yeah.
Look, inshallah, we coming together. Inshallah, we trying to bridge that gap between the older generation and the younger generation. So.
Yes, exactly.
Like she said, knowing our responsibility, our community is our responsibility. So coming together and, bringing that narrative of our history and our community, in our community.
Make it visible, make it so real.
Right.
That word real time. At first I used to struggle with, what are they talking about? But it really is a valuable concept.
Right.
So, yeah.
And a lot of times I know I'm in tourism and museum industry, and a lot of times we take for granted, our role in that as well, right? We think our history is just for us sometimes, but in reality, like when you tell the story, like as we're talking now, and we can show documentation, we can show other footage that presentation didn't show.
That's right.
Ourselves, it also becomes a learning, not just for us, but also for the general public.
Right.
So we shouldn't play down our own history to the extent that we think it's just for us to preserve for our own pride and our own dignity. No. Also to clear up the story also, because it's a big for humanity also, if we really look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's like you said, it's a part of our identity and our makeup. So that's
remake the world.
real quick. That was a good point she made.
You want this one? You want this? You want this one? Back to this one?
Not that one. There was another one she did.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. She says that the belief that your personal life should be separate from your mission is a little shady because isn't that where hypocrisy comes from?
Absolutely.
So that stood out for me too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dean.
No, I was saying the person who said that. That's
yo. I'm not gonna.
Don't go in because that's different. But
yo,
just know
like
that
you
was
said,
real.
You say you gotta understand that the times during that.
No,
yeah,
but
part.
It though. The brother who's doing that, who presented that, like that's a false narrative. Like
right.
FOI don't even talk like that for real.
The casting. That's what goes back to what I said. Who is speaking? We talk about who is speaking. Who are you selecting to speak on your behalf? Like, we have to be careful of that because that type of language is not the language it's not the language that was used at the time. You know, so I'm saying it wasn't
those were elements among us, but that wasn't the overarching.
But the way that was presented, obviously, people like who are sensitive, we're going to pick that up, and they're going to be like, "Well, what's that about?" It's going to paint the picture as if people are validating and validifying something that is wrong. You know what I'm saying? And basically saying that, well, you can do whatever you want, just as long as you're personal. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You can hurt somebody just as long as it's personal. It's not business. You know, that's like a mob. That's like mob status, man. You know, it's the mafia. Like, it's nothing personal. It's just business, man. My personal life is separate from my business life. You know, so it's like, we have to be careful about who is presenting on our behalf. And in this documentary, it wasn't put together by us. So it's like they went and casted who they want to call up, and that's who they got. You know, was I pleased with everybody? Absolutely not. Some of them were very subpar. You know what I'm saying? Like, very subpar. You know, I can understand the daughters. The daughters did what they had to do. They represented well for their fathers. It's traumatizing for them. They lived it. They were there. They were around that time. They were young, but they had to live with that trauma. You know what I'm saying? Them other guys, I don't know. Some of them guys, I don't know why they were even there, man. But again, it's not ours. It's not ours.
Marsha, you was going to say? Oh, she got pumped off.
She says, Brother Muhammad Abdul Malik says, Assalamu alaikum, family. Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Muhammad Abdul Malik. He said it's important to understand how we began our journey to Al-Islam for the nation of Islam, which we must now come together in unity and create our own narratives, movies, etc., which leads to what our beloved Lyndon Bilal has mentioned as well. When we come together at our conventions, it's time to be grateful, etc., we need to have workshops to bring together filmmakers with what Imam Benjamin Bilal mentioned to produce. Imam Bilal mentioned produce our own documentaries as part of the focus. And Imam Benjamin Bilal is a filmmaker, by the way. Hakeem Sabri is a filmmaker who is on the line with us. So we have filmmakers who are in this community who have scripts. These brothers have scripts. They've written plays and scripts. So it's like, okay, and we have some young brothers and sisters who have written plays and scripts as well. So it's like we have the resources. We have it. Just gotta put it together.
Yeah, the call out's coming. The call out's coming.
Yeah, that's what we taking from this documentary.
That's what we can take from these kind of things. I mean, I also think this is a hint. I also think it's like they're throwing hints like, you guys over there in the Imam Muhammad's community, they're not saying it. They can't come out and say it publicly. So they do like throw you little subtles. Y'all need to step it up, man.
Yeah, step up.
Yeah.
Step up because
wake up
because we doing it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like what I told Dean about Wakanda. It's a little sidebar, but like we was talking about Black Panther, right? And we talked about how that movie hinted to Oakland, California. Everything was related to Oakland. And like the STEM center that Chadwick that his character was going to build in Oakland. So it's like now when you look at Oakland, there should have been a hint to be like, oh, we should look at Oakland to develop Oakland. Because notice how after that, the two main sources of employment for our people, unfortunately, were tied to two sports teams that left that city. So now you get they had economic blight then before, and now you imagine more economic blight because now you don't have two of the sports teams that were supplying jobs. So what do you think is going on with no jobs? When you have no jobs, what do you think is going on? You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're throwing little hints at you. Here's take a hint. Let's see if you grab onto it. You don't grab onto it, well, hey, it's your loss. We're gonna go in there and gentrify it. We're gonna go in there and build it up for our people. That's how they do it. Hakeem says, you all should contact Imam Benjamin Bilal to talk about this documentary and others done by others and why his movie THEM them is so important.
That stands for
the
Honorable Elijah
Muhammad. That's right. Yeah, Imam Ben, what's up, man? Assalamu alaikum. If you're gonna watch this, so call upon you, Imam Ben, to step forward. You know what I'm saying? We'll send a little inbox to Imam Benjamin. Bilal,
instructor.
Well, he likes to be called instructor, so Instructor Ben, to come forth and present his case. You know, but we don't want to just present cases. We want to present solutions.
Right.
That's what I think. That's what we all going back towards is. Okay, what do we need to get these films off the ground? What do we need? You said we have the scripts. But okay, you have the scripts now. What do we need to like get this thing out to the masses? Sister Marsha's returned. So, Sister Marsha, you have anything to add?
That is straight. You're on mute.
Sister Marsha may not have nothing to add. Does she? Can't hear you. You're muted, Marsha. There you go.
Sorry.
There you go. What were you saying?
No, I think I'm good. I do want to. So I like documentaries. So
you do.
Oh yeah, I do. So
okay.
So I imagine that I'll be sitting down and watching it again and probably fine tooth combing it, this time around. Especially since I was in motion for a good part of it, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone who shared their perspective has some valid points. It's always a challenge when we're dealing with history, tainted history, emotions, things that are close and personal to us and to our experience. There's so much to unpack, and I think Hakeem Sabri said it earlier. Like we saw what they said, and then we saw they didn't say, and then he was piggybacking off of what Mujahideen was sharing, and so I imagine that as you watch it again and you talk more about it, there are things that we'll reflect on just because of our connection to the community and being a part of the history in terms of the nation, and then under the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad, that those conversations will bring out other things that you just wouldn't have seen in the documentary because they're not connected to those things. And like you also said, Bilal, because of the casting, there's certain things that just won't come out because of who got picked to tell the story. But I think it's also you also have to think about what story you like to tell and for what purpose. I'm of that opinion. Like, I get that it's all history and I'm not negating any of it. But as we strive to move forward as a community and to regain some of that beauty that existed in the Nation of Islam in terms of the that collective spirit and that togetherness and that discipline, or they use the word discipline in the documentary. As we strive to collect some of that back that was lost in the transition, we just have to be mindful of what story we like to be told and for what benefit, because you can go back and forth and have that, well, this in relation to Malcolm X, and I think it always kind of centers around Malcolm X. It doesn't really center around Muhammad Ali. I get that this documentary was about their relationship, but that strife always centers around that Malcolm X Elijah Muhammad relationship. And so just have to be mindful of what story you want to tell. I know we were talking about us telling our own story, and we got, we have enough filmmakers out here to do it, and all of that great stuff. But we just have to be mindful of why we want to tell the story. Is it just for being able to recount the history appropriately, or is it to motivate the community to do something or to not do something? And as we here on the New Freedom Exchange podcast and the New Freedom Exchange and the New Freedom Network in general, put out our modern day stories, I think that we need to remain mindful of the purpose for that stuff, and make sure that that's always at the forefront of what we do, because we are just like this documentary. Depending on what mind grabs a hold of the documentary, it steers you in a certain direction. I think that's for all media that's out here. And for some of the people behind the media, that's their intent, right? And so to counter that, our intent has to be able to be in the frame of mind to move our community in the best direction. So that's all. That's all I got. That's all my brain could do for this. My eyes are itchy.
We'll get up. I had a few clips I wanted to share as we close out. Well, we could do that as we close out. It's a couple clips, some from Muhammad Ali, some from Malcolm X. And just as a reminder, their body of work is still available to read, to listen to for you to get a firsthand from themselves, how they presented themselves. And you can see the integrity in both of them, right? And that's the one thing that I would use as, the purpose of us telling our story or leading with a project is, show the integrity, of what it is to be a brother to another brother. Like when the daughters were saying when they go over to someone's house and that's not, that's you safeguard your family. So if you bring your family to somebody else's house, then you trust their house as well. Right. So bringing back that type of bond, also that the work is not done. There's a lot more work for us to do as men. We have a lot of responsibility that we need to get back on. For those of us who are not on our responsibility, on our job, it's a reminder, we could get caught up in beef, especially people who are, in that type of culture in the street or even in corporate, environments, the cutthroat. I want to be the one that represents my people. And so I'm going to undermine another brother that's coming in, all that stuff. That's the underlying thing, I think, in reference, especially with scripture, right? Because previous scripture gives us perceptions of Cain and Abel, right? They're killing each brother, right? But the Quran gives us clarification and, insight on that. And so it's that's another sub story that's going on also in these documentaries. If people who have the ideology of a certain scripture, they're perpetuating that too, through these characters as well. So we have to be mindful of that.
Absolutely. And I think too, some of the, I'm going to say this, there's some things that you may not want to tell anyway, some things about that history, some things about certain parts of history that you may not want to tell anyway. And it's just because it comes with a lot of other unnecessary, it's just stuff that you want to cover. And the Imam Muhammad, Allah forgive him, Instagram, the Paradise and Station Journal to Produce, addressed a lot of these topics that relates to the relationship that he had with Malcolm X, the relationship that he had with Muhammad Ali, the relationship that they all had with his father, what I'm saying, and that family situation, that family dynamic, what I'm saying, is just some of those things, again, it's been clarified, some has been already clarified already, and some things you just may want to leave alone, what I'm saying, because when you try to dig it up, then I beg to ask is why you want to dig so much, I'm saying, why you want to dig so hard into another man's faults, what I'm saying, or another man's flaw, You know what I'm saying? Like that was their flaw. You know what I'm saying? And we all have flaws. We all have to answer to Allah's wajal for that. But the thing is, what's going to save us is our relationship with Allah. You know, what was our intentions with what is our intentions? You know what I'm saying? What do we do with our time? You know, we
Yeah.
pray that Allah forgives these people, our ancestors, for their flaws, mistakes, but we don't know. They have to answer to that. We weren't there. We're not going to be present with them on the day of judgment. They got to answer for that. And we pray that they have done as much good to save them. And we pray that for ourselves too, that we do as much good that can save ourselves from the fire and our families from the fire. So it's like, you know, some things we may not want to touch. I'm just throwing that out there. Some things we may not want to touch no more. You know, because I'm personally very tired of people putting out documentaries about Malcolm X and his assassination, and like they're doing one for Tupac, and now they're doing a whole movie about Tupac. I'm
Yeah,
just like
Biggie.
these guys,
Yeah.
Biggie, these guys are dead. They're dead. We like stop digging up old bones. And for some reason, some things or another, people seem so ingrained in telling a story that they know, some us already know the answers to already, or part know the answers to. You know what I'm saying, of how these men were assassinated and killed. You know what I'm saying, and taken out. So it's like, you know, I would even like entertain some of that stuff. It's like, okay, we tell the story from our lens, our perspective. You know, we give the facts, put it out there. People are going to judge it for what it is. Like Marsha said, it depends on who your intentions, and it depends on who's watching it, what they're going to get out of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? So like we have the story of Malcolm X, we have the story of Muhammad Ali. We saw their relationship as brothers. They loved each other. There were bumps. There were major bumps in the road in their relationship. But as you saw towards the end, there were some reconciliation. There was some misreconciliation that just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Timing, the way things went down, it didn't happen the way that it happened. So, but you saw that people like Ali, you know, he regretted later on in his life. And sometimes when you get older and you mature, because you had to figure that he was young. He was younger than Malcolm X. He was, you know, when he came in. So it's like, you know, and he had a different relationship with Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Malcolm had a different relationship with Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, in terms of a father figure. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, you have to consider that when you look at these guys were young. So it's like they were all maturing. Like every year they were maturing. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's hard to do that, you know, when you don't have, you know, the absence of a father figure. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's hard to do that. You're yearning for a father figure. You know what I'm saying? And you're not going to defy your father, you know what I'm saying, off the basis of what someone else is telling you. So it's hard. It's difficult.
And you're living your experience in front of cameras.
Right.
Let's not forget that too. Like, you know, these were big figures, right? That were, you know, living their experience in front of the world. And in addition to that, the glass. So we talked about you know, that viewpoint or the lens that we look through it. The glass was a little cloudy too, because there were hands in that were orchestrating some things in the midst of all that was going on as well. And so, you know, when you're telling a story, there are certain parts that you will see, certain parts that you won't see. And so, you know, we're not.
The puppet maker, I'm sorry, the puppet master is always available. He's always on his job. The puppet master.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So we have that cloudy lens too, because, you know, we're not seeing that in this documentary. It's hints at it, you know, you mentioned the FBI, you know, you mentioned certain things, but then you back up away from it really quick. So we don't see any of that, but
it's all a pattern that they're doing. It's a pattern. So like you said, the thing is we don't want to lose focus of our purpose, you know, of our eternal purpose, you know, but what Allah has created us for, you know, and that's just building community life. And, you know, having our own institutions as well, especially with the media institutions, the social institutions, educational, I mean, all of it, because history is it makes culture. So, you know, whatever, society in, for instance, whatever Shaitan has, is doing, like the schemes of Satan is, real. So he's out here working. So that means that we have to really like hold tight the relationship that we have with each other, and build off of our community.
And now, if I can say, and now this is the time when the human family is very important. So
Right.
any difference that we give, it needs to be global. It needs to be big enough to embrace
Right.
everybody.
Right.
The true humans, as Instructor Bilal calls them. The true humans will hear and they will understand the intention, and then that represents like a guidance, a platform for them, to kind of follow. They'll understand it. But if we keep it narrow and keep, like Bilal saying, keep telling the same stories over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
then I mean, it's not big enough. So I'm
Mm-mm.
saying to you all next.
And I want to say one last thing, that for the children of these beautiful brothers, I just want to say that we even through all this discussion, we honor their experiences,
Absolutely.
because for us,
Right.
we're watching Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali's relationship, but for them, it's just their daddy. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that we honor their experiences, and recognize that while we're watching it from the outside
Most
looking in,
definitely.
it's not our personal lives, and so for the things that they've had to experience or go without because of all that transpired.
Amen.
I just want to
Yeah.
say that we do honor their experiences.
Absolutely. And it takes a level of courage, to, go on camera and say, and represent, on this level. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of faith, what I'm saying, and belief, so yeah, definitely second that, I agree, so, and we have to tighten our ranks, with, as families, Imam Muhammad's family, the Malcolm X's family, Muhammad Ali's family, like this is family. At the end of the day, this is family, man. We're one big family. What I'm saying, and we have to. If we don't take anything away from this, we're all one family. What I'm saying, and we all love each other, and we all should respect each other, and we should all learn from this, and then build towards how we can sustain those legacies, because those they're living testimonies of their father's legacies. What I'm saying, and like, how do we support them? How do we support them? Are we doing enough to support them? Are we reaching out to them? Like, did anybody reach out to them? Like, as of recent, it's like, what are we doing on our side to, like, keep these bonds tight? Because sometimes, those bonds get lost in the sauce, and sometimes it's our fault that it gets lost in the sauce, because we're not taking that extra step and picking up that phone and be like, hey, so and so, I haven't talked to you in a while. What's up? How you doing? Like, what I'm saying. So that goes a long way. Brother Hanif Khalil says, reading Surah 18, Surah Al-Kahf. He's talking about the Surah Al-Cave. Each Friday, lets us know that things are not always as they appear.
Amen.
And regardless of what we say, these two great men did much to bring humanity to Al-Islam. Ameen.
Right.
Ameen to both.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, it
Alhamdulillah to
was.
both.
That's the bigger story.
That's
That's the biggest story. The
That's
other
it.
piece is sensationalism, and that's what
Sensationalism, yep.
sells.
Right.
That's what sells movie tickets. But this is the bigger story. Is that they did some really great things.
Mm-hmm.
They spoke out in a time where it wasn't popular. There are things that people would say today and not even flinch an eye, but they spoke out in an era where there were great penalties to pay for doing so.
Major
And
penalties,
so,
major
yeah.
penalties. And again, I want to just say what Dean said to you about the importance of man being fathers, and how Malcolm and Ali were great husbands and fathers, to their children. You know, so I'm saying that's like a huge lesson to extract from their relationship. You extract nothing else other than what's more important, what they did to bring humanity to Al-Islam. But in that, and then bringing humanity to Al-Islam, demonstrating how they respected their families. They held their families in high regard. They protected their families. You know, since they cherished their daughters, they cherished their wives. So it's like, just if brothers just take a lesson from that, because that's something that, you know, we need to work on and improve upon as men.
Yeah, because they broke that code. That code has been, you know, out of whack for a while, man. It's definitely get that back, bro, man.
We gotta get back to the brothers code, man. So
Yeah.
brothers, the build is coming soon.
The build is coming soon.
It's a new program. It's called the build. It's coming soon. So brothers and sisters, stay tuned. You know, we're gonna unveil that soon, man.
God willing.
Alhamdulillah.
We thank you all for joining us on our Bilalian cinema night. Was this a debut or this is a part 2? This is the second one?
Well, this is the second one. It's kind of the official. This kind of
Official
the official tissue one. I mean,
okay.
the first one was good, but this was like,
y'all put me to sleep on that one too, man. I'm not really the movie guy. So
Oh, dang.
yeah, Dean fell asleep.
We will not be inviting Dean to no movies.
Yeah,
Okay?
Right.
Put me on the recliner. You know what I mean?
Okay, alhamdulillah. We thank everyone for tuning in. We appreciate everybody for their commentary, their feedback tonight. Sister Jada, we appreciate you. Sister Haja Ezekiel Omar, we appreciate you always for supporting and you know, being involved and supporting us and just supporting this community. And we ask Allah to bless you all and bless everyone that's listening, and to bless this platform here so we can continue doing the much bigger work that needs to be done in our communities. Ameen. Dean, you have some clips? So
we're gonna play everybody off. We're gonna play a few clips, and then we do have a tribute to 9/11, the Adhan being called.
Oh yes, by dear beloved Wali Shaheed. Shout out to Wali Shaheed out of Brooklyn, of New York. Marsha to Abu Musti Khalifa. Beautiful Adhan that was called in Yankee Stadium 2 weeks after 9/11. Just prefacing that, 2 weeks they called our Jamaat. In 2 weeks, no one else. They didn't call anyone else. They call someone from representing this community of Imam Muhammad.
Okay, so until next time, we thank you all. Peace.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Assalamu alaikum.
If white immigrants can come to this country 50 years ago with nickels and dimes and no education, and come here and pool their little nickels and dimes and no education, and set up little stores, develop these stores into larger stores, develop this into an industry which creates job opportunities for whites. Since Lincoln was supposed to have freed the black man 100 years ago, and today the black man, according to the government economist, has spending power of $20 billion per year. We feel that with the black man spending $20 billion a year, not setting up any businesses, not creating any industry, not creating any job opportunities for his own kind, he's not in a moral position to point the finger today at the white man and tell the white man that he's discriminating against him for not giving him a job in factories that he himself set up. If the black man has $20 billion, and these so-called Negro leaders are such geniuses that they can integrate white restaurants and integrate white factories and force themselves into that which the white man has set up, they should use this same ingenuity to show the black people how to pool our wealth and set up something of our own. And then we won't have to force our way into his anymore. One more thing I would like to point out concerning what he said about 125th Street. We don't waste our time on 125th Street, but you can reach more people in the street who want to change than you can in the bourgeoisie society, the bourgeoisie church, and the bourgeoisie circles. Our program is directed toward the man in the street. So we spend our time in the street, and what we do with that man, instead of trying to change the white man in your mind and make you accept us, we change the mind of the black man and make him accept himself. And as soon as he accepts himself, he'll solve his own problem. He won't be trying to force himself into your factory and into your bedroom and into your kitchen.
Negroes in this country are confronted by is with a re-education program. Not a re-education program for whites, but a re-education program for black people themselves to eliminate the negative image that has been through propaganda instilled within us of ourselves since we've been in this country. It'll take an entirely new approach to restore some kind of racial pride and racial dignity in the minds of the black people. And once we have this pride and this dignity, we can get the cohesiveness and the unity and harmony necessary to solve our own problems here in the black community instead of waiting for representatives of the white community to come uptown and solve these problems for us.
What would you like people to think about you when you've gone?
I'd like for them to say he took a few cups of love. He took 1 tablespoon of patience, 1 teaspoon of generosity, 1 pint of kindness. He took 1 quart of laughter, 1 pinch of concern, and then he mixed willingness with happiness. He added lots of faith, and he stirred it up well. Then he spread it over a span of a lifetime, and he served it to each and every deserving person he met.
Muhammad Ali, thank you very much.
Now, in concluding this, when the slave traders and the black traders of Africa, traitors, different, traitors. When the slave traders and the traitors of Africa called themselves Muslims, were fighting each other and carrying on and weakening their people over there so that the white traders come in there and get us, take us on slave ships and bring us here. Now, all right? Yeah. So now, when all that happened, what you think was happening to our human soul? Let me tell you, God has given me an eye to see into the very abstract form of the human being by my study of the Quran. Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you what was happening. I know, as if I was there. The soul of those victims had given up on this world. They knew they were going to their death. They knew they were going to circumstances that were going to finish them off. They would never have their lives again. They knew that. But in their soul, they were saying, our children will one day be free again, and they will serve God. We have failed, but our children will one day serve God. And now their prayer that they prayed in the deep recesses of their soul has come true. And not only are the descendants of the black people of Africa from Islam coming to Islam, taking up the divine cause, but those who never were Muslims, their children from Christianity, their children from Judaism, their children from paganism are embracing Islam in America. And we are going to build new Africa. New Africa, right here in the United States. Allahu Akbar. And the soul of those suffering victims, they're rejoicing because of us here today.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful, we summons you. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu أشهد أن لا إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله There's only one God. God bless America. God bless this planet.